We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. I can't believe it. Time absolutely flies, but it is, of course, time for the 2022-2023 Iowa basketball preview. And this is on the cusp of a very, very successful basketball season. Iowa, I would say, outperformed most people's expectations, not mine, which I will return to later in this video. But as far as the national perception goes, they absolutely outperformed the expectations. They had a really, really solid Big Ten regular season, some very quality wins, as well as in the non-conference. Keegan Murray had a phenomenal season. Iowa, for a third year in a row, had a National Player of the Year contender. A lot of great things. Jordan Bohannon had a great year. We saw the emergence of certain players, so a lot to like. Of course, Iowa did end up losing in the first round in an absolute upset game, a game that they should have won. And 9 times out of 10 would have won. And I'm not going to lie, that was definitely a downer to an otherwise very, very successful season, because the reality is, folks, with Fran McCaffrey, my questions with him have never been the regular season, the Big Ten. Sure, winning a Big Ten regular season title would be great. And have they had talented enough teams in the past to do so? Perhaps. I would say maybe one or two of his teams were talented enough to do so. You have to understand, in order to win a Big Ten regular season title, you either need to have a very, very, very good starting five or a very, very deep team that can battle through the physicality of the Big Ten. So that is neither here nor there. I know that Fran McCaffrey can get it done in the regular season. Really what it comes down to is the postseason. And I think that is his next step. And I think he answered some of those questions by winning the Big Ten tournament. But then he raised even more questions by losing in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Just quite frankly, that was unacceptable. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on. But again, a very, very successful season by the Iowa Hawkeyes. And Fran McCaffrey has had this Iowa basketball program on a tear. If you count the COOF season, Iowa would have made the NCAA tournament 5 years in a row, which is very, very impressive. All right, guys, before we get into any more, I want to ask you guys to consider hitting that subscribe button. Help your boy out, support your boy, like, comment, share. You guys can donate to the channel by hitting the donate button on my YouTube channel. Go to 247hawkeye.com, and my Twitter handle is on this Zoom link right here. And without further ado, let's get into this. So I think the best place for me to start with this Iowa basketball team is to remind you guys of who Iowa lost and go over the newcomers. I'm not going to spend too much time discussing who Iowa lost. I'm going to hit some key points there. You guys, most of you guys are aware Iowa lost Jordan Bohannon, an all-time three-point shooter. My opinion on that is a couple of things. I have never been the biggest Jordan Bohannon fan. He definitely was a quality player for the Iowa Hawkeyes, but I also think in a lot of regards, he did not allow the Iowa basketball team to move forward in the way that they needed to. The offense has always been there for the Hawks. They have had a top 10 offensive efficiency team for the past several years. The question mark has always been with the defense. And the bottom line is Jordan Bohannon was not a good defender. Sometimes he would work hard on the defensive end and do his best, but by and large, he was a mediocre defender. But with all that being said, he still is the Big Ten's all-time leading three-point shooter. And regardless of what I just said there, Iowa is going to need to find a way to replace in some small way Jordan Bohannon's moxie, his confidence, his leadership, and his three-point shooting ability. But I'm here to tell you guys right now that as far as the guard position goes, Iowa does not have a guy like Jordan Bohannon outside of maybe Josh Dix, which I will get to a little bit later on when I discuss the Iowa Hawkeye newcomers. So that is going to be a challenge. Now, the good news is Iowa still has Connor McCaffrey and some veteran individuals on the team. So I don't think it's impossible to make up for his leadership and things like that. The toughest thing is going to be his three-point shooting and his big shot-making ability, because a lot of these games absolutely come down to the wire. And if you have a guy on your team who can hit those big shots, it's an asset, pure and simple. Obviously, Iowa lost Keegan Murray. His loss is unquantifiable. The guy was amazing. He's still killing it in the NBA right now. And I mean, what more can I say, folks? I mean, he is really, 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 really good. And Iowa loses a quality player. Now, on the flip side, newcomers, Iowa brought in Josh Dix, which I will pull up here, a 6'5" freshman. I think he is making more progress or quicker progress than was expected after his horrific leg injury in the offseason. He had the same injury that Paul George had a couple of years back. You guys can see in the background his recruiting profile, high 3-star shooting guard. He came on strong later in his high school career. And just very, very quality, top player in the state of Iowa, good get for the Hawkeyes. He had some nice offers. This guy is a hooper. I did his recruiting video or his commitment video. This guy is an absolute hooper. He's the best way I can describe him is he is a scorer. He knows how to get the ball in the hoop. He can dribble. He's way more athletic than I think he's going to be given credit for right off the jump. And I'm very excited about his career here with the Iowa Hawkeyes because, I think the Iowa Hawkeyes have not had a shooting guard like Josh Dix, a guy who is both an incredible shooter, but also athletic and can get to the rim and has that mid-range game. Iowa just has not had that type of shooter. I would say the closest thing that we have seen to Josh Dix would be maybe Peter Jok, but Peter Jok was more a small forward. He was 6'6", wasn't terribly athletic. Josh Dix is far more athletic than Peter Jok was. Even at 6'6", sometimes Peter Jok struggled to dunk the basketball. So it is a little bit different. So that's number one is Josh Dix. I am expecting him to play this year. The recovery has been a lot better. Now, is he going to be playing, tons and tons of minutes? I mean, time will tell how his body recovers to the injury and his confidence on that leg. But as far as the potential and what he brings to the Iowa Hawkeyes, it is absolutely there, folks. I am a big believer in Josh Dix. I think he is a really, really quality player. Now, some of the other guys that you guys should be keeping an eye on as far as newcomers go would be DeSante Bowen, the point guard out of Boston, Massachusetts. This was an excellent get for Fran McCaffrey. He has gone to the East Coast and snagged some really, really quality basketball players. Iowa absolutely has a footprint now in the East that they did not have before. Matter of fact, I would say Iowa has a better footprint in the East or on the East Coast than they do in the Midwest. Outside of the state of Iowa and maybe Illinois, the best footprint Iowa has is, as I said, the East Coast. So that is definitely great. DeSante Bowen has great size. He's 6'2", 6'3". He can shoot it okay. He's not as good of a shooter as Jordan Bohannon is, but he can get to the rim. He's a slasher, very athletic. He's going to bring an element on the defensive end and the offensive end that Iowa has not seen in a while, if at all. I mean, I can't remember the last time. Actually, you know what? I take that back. The last time Iowa has had a point guard like Dasonte Bowen would probably be Mike Gesell, a 6'2", 6'3", very athletic guy who can get to the rim, who can defend, and can shoot okay. If Dasonte Bowen wants to take his game to the next level, he will have to sharpen up that jumper. Let me see if I can pull up his recruiting profile here so you guys can see kind of what he had going on in high school. This dude had offers from a lot of different places, folks. He really, really did. And he visited the Hawks, and it was a one and done. He was sold on the Iowa Hawkeyes and chose to play for them immediately. High 3-star, 26th ranked point guard in the country, third best player in the state of Massachusetts. Look at this offer sheet, guys. Maryland, Northwestern, Boston College, Georgetown, Miami, Penn State, Rutgers, Seton Hall. I mean, USC, Virginia Tech, just a phenomenal list of recruiting. So those are the two newcomers. I will also mention very quickly Amarion Nimmers. I think he is a guy to keep an eye on. Had the whole coof and all of the other stuff that has happened over the past 2 years not happened, I think it's likely he would have had a lot more offers than he had. Also, he was a late bloomer, but he was on Rock Island in the state of Illinois. I believe they won a state championship. And when Iowa was able to get him as a preferred walk-on, this was a major story. So I think that Amarion Nimmers is definitely a guy to keep an eye on. I'm not saying that he will play a ton this year, but I will tell you something that I absolutely believe. Amarion will be playing considerable minutes, maybe not this year, but in his Iowa career. That could be as soon as this year. I'm not sure if it will be, but definitely next year. So don't forget the name Amarion Nimmers. He is a preferred walk-on. He is not a scholarship guy, but I think if he proves enough to Fran McCaffery this year, Iowa would be more than happy to put him on scholarship next year when some scholarships open up. All right, guys, moving on here. What I would call the newcomers that have been on the Iowa Hawkeye roster that are who maybe played a little bit last year in certain roles that are taking on much bigger roles. That is who we're going to talk about next. That is, the guy that I need to start with regarding that is 100% Tony Perkins. He is going to be taking on a way larger role for the Iowa Hawkeyes. He was inserted into the starting lineup last year. Joe Toussaint, wasn't playing terribly, but Iowa wanted to take a look in a different direction. And as soon as Tony Perkins was inserted into the starting lineup, Iowa went on a tear and finished with a phenomenal record. Now, was that directly because of him? Was it directly correlated with Tony Perkins? Maybe, maybe not. I would say he definitely had something to do with it. Maybe not all, but definitely something to do with it. He is a dog on defense. He gets after it. Very athletic. He attacks the rim, has an excellent mid-range game. And again, his next step is just, being more consistent with the three-point shooting. If he can knock down open looks from three and just keep the defense honest, that will open up the Iowa Hawkeye offense and his game so much more. I think teams are going to, step off of him and see if he can knock down that shot. And it's up to him to have the confidence to step into that shot confidently and knock it down, so that teams at the very least need to be honest with his shooting. I think Tony Perkins, everything that we've been hearing out of the camp for the Iowa Hawkeyes, Tony Perkins is one of those guys that is taking a giant leap forward. And you can expect him to have a very, very nice season. If you look at the last, I would say 15 games of the Iowa Hawkeye season last year, Tony Perkins averaged double-digit points. So he definitely will be taking a larger step, and he's going to be playing way more minutes. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, he is going to be the veteran in the backcourt, so to speak, for the Iowa Hawkeyes. The next guy to take a look at would definitely be my guy Ulis, Aaron Ulis, the brother of Tony Ulis out of Illinois. You know, with this, I really respect the fact that Aaron has been patient. He's waited his turn. Joe Toussaint got the nod last year, and then Tony Perkins got the nod over Joe Toussaint. I believe the two guys that will be battling for the top point guard duties, aside from Tony Perkins, going back to what I said with Tony Perkins, he can definitely play point guard, but he's likely to play the shooting guard position more often, with every now and again sliding over to point guard if Iowa needs him to do so. The two guys that will be battling, I guess three guys that will be battling, but mainly the two guys that will be battling for the point guard, starting point guard, and the major minutes of the point guard position will be Aaron Ulis and Dasonte Bowen. Maybe Isaiah Nimmers, but it's definitely those first two. And I believe that Fran McCaffery is going to give the keys to the team, so to speak, to Aaron Ulis first, and show him not necessarily loyalty, but just say, you know what, you've been here. We're going to give you the chance, and it's up to you to capitalize on this opportunity. So I believe Aaron Ulis will be the starting point guard for the Iowa Hawkeyes to start the season. And it'll be interesting to see what he does with it. I mean, he can, last year he showed us that he can get to the rim. He has a decent mid-range game. He's a great defender. But again, it's kind of in line with Tony Perkins and Dasonte Bowen. It's becoming a more consistent three-point shooter. And, just kind of, well, specifically for him, if he's going to be the starting point guard, he needs to step into a larger leadership role for the Iowa Hawkeyes. But I have all the confidence in Aaron Ulis. I'm not sure that he will be the start. Well, as I said, he will be the starting point guard, but long term, do I know for sure that he is the answer at this, point guard position for the Iowa Hawkeyes? Time will tell. But based off of what I've seen with the highlights, what we've seen early in his Iowa career, do I think it's possible that he can man that position and hold it down and really take advantage of his opportunity? Yes, I do. He has the pedigree, he has the tools, he has the size, he has the athleticism. So hopefully he does well with that. The next guy on the list would be Peyton Sandfort. All of you guys are aware of Peyton Sandfort. 6'7", great shooter. His brother is also committed to playing for the Iowa Hawkeyes. And all reports about him have been excellent. With Peyton, the top question is his athleticism and just, improving defensively, maybe becoming a little bit more explosive. But the guy is such a knockdown shooter. He has such a beautiful jump shot that, it just kind of is what it is. So he is definitely going to be taking on a larger role for the Iowa Hawkeyes, especially with Jordan Bohannon departing. Peyton Sandfort is going to be asked to, I would say double the amount of shots that he took last year. Fran McCaffery absolutely instills the confidence in his shooters to shoot the ball, because at the end of the day, the game of basketball comes down to putting the ball in the hoop more than the other team. And if you have a guy like Peyton Sandfort who can get the ball in the hoop, or through the hoop rather, you have to take advantage of that. So I guarantee you he will be taking double the amount of shots that he took last year. And he had some really, really good offensive performances last year. I'm also going to put up the stats of the Iowa Hawkeyes from last year so you guys can see kind of what we're working with here. So I will be talking about the stats here when I return to it, but I will have them in the background here while I'm discussing this. The next guy, he's not new, and I wouldn't say he's taking on a much bigger role, though he will be taking a bigger role just because of the fact that Iowa lost Keegan Murray and Jordan Bohannon. And just the fact that he's a very talented guy is Philip Braka, but he's not. I wouldn't consider him new, and I wouldn't consider him to be taking on as big of a role as the three guys that I just mentioned in Tony Perkins, Peyton Sandfort, and Aaron Eulis. Philip Braka is not, he was the starter last year, and he's going to be the starter this year, which I will give you guys my projected starting lineup for the Iowa Hawkeyes, as well as what my starting lineup would be if I was the head coach for the Hawks. Philip Braka is probably the guy that I am most curious to see his development from last year to this year. I think he really has some good intangibles. He is way more athletic than he gets credit for. He's 6'9". He's more of a power forward, in all honesty, as opposed to a center. And the reports out of camp have been that he has really been working on his outside jumper. He's consistently shooting 3-point shots and knocking them down, which is hugely important. If Philip Braka can stretch the defense like we saw from Luka Garza and open up the spacing of the floor, that will go perfectly with the personnel that the Hawkeyes have with Tony Perkins, Aaron Eulis, DeSante Bowen, Josh Dix, all those slashers that the Hawks have. If he can't, then it won't mesh as well, because when you have slashers, you have to open, you need spacing on the floor. I mean, you need spacing on the floor regardless. But when you have slashers, guys that can get to the rim, you really need spacing. And the only way that will happen is if Iowa's big guys are able to step out and occasionally knock down 3-point shots. Otherwise, each team will just pack it in, and make Iowa make shots from the outside. So I'm very much hoping that the reports are accurate. Now, I'll tell you something. How guys do in games versus how they do in practice are two different things, but I am very hopeful that he will be much improved. Even if he only shoots 2 3-point shots a game, 1 to 2 3-point shots a game, and is a high 30 to low 40% 3-point shooter, that's fine. If he can just space it and knock down some longer range jumpers, not even necessarily 3-point shots, that would be hugely important to this Iowa Hawkeye team and their spacing and their production on the offensive end. All right, guys, here were the stats from last year. You guys can see, Iowa loses their top 2 scorers in J-Bo and Keegan Murray, but they have everybody in that mid-range of really, of solid contributors returning for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Patrick McCaffrey, Chris Murray, Tony Perkins, Philip Braka, Peyton Sandfort. All these guys in that middle category are all coming back. So that is good news. Philip Braka, going back to him, he only averaged 5.8 points per game. To me, a successful season for him would be averaging, between 8 and 12 points a game and getting that rebound total up to like 6 to 8, like what we saw from Keegan Murray. If he can get his rebound total, in that range of 6 to 8 rebounds a game, 8 to 12 points a game, that would be phenomenal. I think he can even average more than 12 points per game. So, again, as I said, time will tell. I'm trying to keep this video as compartmentalized as I can. The top 2 guys, moving on from, some of the newcomers / guys that are going to be taking on larger roles. Who are the top guys on this Iowa basketball team? Who are the alpha males? Well, this is actually kind of a difficult question to answer, because on one hand, if I just answer it without thinking about it, the answer is Chris Murray and Patrick McCaffrey. But if I go off of what we've heard from the camp and some of the hype, the answer would be Chris Murray, Patrick McCaffrey, Tony Perkins, and Philip Ribacka. It'd be 4 guys. But if I just have to go with 2 guys, I will be going with Patrick McCaffrey and Chris Murray. They are the alpha males until proven otherwise. Now, I want to spend some time on Chris Murray here and kind of put Iowa's front court into crystallization here. But first, Chris Murray. He is not the same player as his brother. Okay. His brother was more of an all-around scorer, pure scorer than Chris. Chris can score the ball, but he is a better three-point shooter than Keegan is, and he's a better passer than Keegan is. He is not going to be, I don't expect him to average 23.5 points per game. He is not the pure scorer that Keegan is. And I know it's very difficult, but to convince yourself otherwise, but they really are 2 different players, and they need you guys. I'm telling you, Iowa fans, in order not to, provide unrealistic expectations, you need to realize that they are different players. Chris, as I said, better shooter and a better passer. And I think we will see that. I think you're going to see Chris Murray, he's able to knock down 3-point shots. He's able to control the offense in a much different way than Keegan did. Keegan didn't really control the offense with the ball in his hands. He would go off of screens, get rebound putbacks. Chris will control the offense more so with the ball in his hands because of his ability as a passer and his ability as a shooter. So Chris Murray, without a doubt, is the alpha male. My expectations for him are plain and simple. He needs to average roughly 15 points per game, 15 to 18 points per game. If he can average 3 assists per game, that would be great. And if he can average 5 to 8 rebounds a game, that would also be great. Like I said, I don't expect him to average 23.5 points per game scoring, but if he can average anywhere from 15 to 18 points per game, it will be excellent. Now, going back to my front court comment, Iowa will have a better starting front court than nearly every team they play against, with Philip Ribacka, Patrick McCaffrey, and Chris Murray. Not to mention Peyton Sandfort as well. They will have a better front court than nearly every team they play. And they will need to take advantage of that. And so, I just wanted to make sure that I made that comment. But my expectations for Chris I don't think are too high. I think they're very realistic. I think he's going to have a very solid season. I'm even more confident about his jump than I was about Keegan's jump last year, because with Chris, we know we've seen what he could do for 2 years. We know he's gone to NBA camps and played against NBA competition. He almost got, he would have been drafted in the second round had he stayed in it. So you have all of these boxes that have been checked showing that he is a quality basketball player. Whereas with Keegan, it was really more internal as far as the Iowa coaching staff letting us know that we could expect a big jump from him. But nationally and even fans wise, we did not know for sure that he was going to take that big of a jump. So I am very confident that Chris will be ready to step into this larger role. So I shared with you guys the top dogs going into this season. As I said, if I have to pick 2, it is Chris Murray and Patrick McCaffrey. But if I am not confined to those limitations, it would be 4 guys: Chris Murray, Patrick McCaffrey, Tony Perkins, and Philip Ribacka. Moving on here, I want to show you guys the Ken Pom. There's other grading scales out there. more or less, they're all similar. Obviously some more than others. I think Ken Pom is the most accurate, so that is what I will be using, and that's what I used last year as well. So we're going to look at Ken Pom's rankings from last year, and I will be explaining what Iowa needs to do, Ken Pom ranking style, in order to take that next step. So last year, Iowa finished 13th in the Ken Pom. They had a 26-10 record, which perhaps I should have highlighted even more at the beginning of this video, as that is very, very impressive. It really is, guys. The fact that Iowa won 26 games last year was awesome. And I also said at the beginning of the video that I would come back to the thought that Iowa outperformed the national conception of what they were going to be this year, but they did not outperform. Well, maybe they did slightly, but not as much as the national pundits. My prediction for what their record was going to be, I have been spot on for the past 4 years. And I don't want to brag, but I kind of do, regarding Iowa's record the past 4 or 5 seasons. When I remember 3 years ago, the common trope was Iowa will be lucky to win 13 games. They'll be lucky to, whatever it was. But I do remember it was, they'll be lucky to win 13 games. Your boy said, no. They're going to win 20 plus games and they're going to make the NCAA tournament. Correct. This last year, I said, this is going to be a 20 plus win team. And I said, I would not be surprised if they won a handful more games than just 20. Correct. If there's one thing I know, it's basketball. And so anyways, just wanted to say that. Okay. I say that to say, if there's one person that you're going to trust regarding Iowa hoops, it needs to be yours truly. So Iowa was 13th last year. By the way, those of you who have been watching me for a long time know that I said each and every one of those things. Okay. This is not revisionist history or anything like that. Anywho, Iowa finished 13th in the Ken Pom rankings last year. They were the 4th best offensive team last year. At times, they were top 3. And they finished with the 80th best adjusted defensive percentage. Now, what's important to note is that after, I believe it was the last 15 games of the season, Iowa was a top 65 adjusted defensive team. In other words, the beginning of the season, Iowa's defense was very mediocre. After that, it was certainly above average. And what was the common thread in those last 15 games? Tony Perkins. And it's also important to note, because there's some fans out there who have the opinion of, well, Iowa will be good again this year, but nothing will be different because their defense will suck. And one more example from last year in the NCAA tournament, Iowa did not lose because their defense struggled in the NCAA tournament. They lost because their offense struggled, which was bizarre, to say the least. Now, the main point in me bringing that up is that this Iowa team absolutely, positively can be a top 75, top 70 defensive efficiency team. And that is what they must do in order to take the next step. And and it's one of those things that I have been saying every fan, in fairness, has been saying this for the past 5 years, probably. So, and that is my expectation. My expectation for this 2022-2023 Iowa Hawkeye team is for them to be, at the very least, a top 75 defensive efficiency team. There is no reason they should not. They have all the pieces. They have the athleticism. They have the size. Maybe not in the starting lineup, but across their roster. They have the size, they have the athleticism, they have the wings and Chris Murray, Patrick McCaffrey. They have the guards. There is no reason that they should not be a top 75 defensive efficiency team. So that is my quite frankly, my expectation is for them to be top 70. But just to be fair, or try to be more fair, I would say top 75. This is Ken Palm's preseason top 25. And Iowa checks in at number 23. Most of this is based off of who they have coming back. So the production that they have coming back. And the production that they have coming back is considered the fifth best offensive team and the 76th best defensive team. Not far off from what I said. Again, if you just look at the guys they have on the roster, there is no reason they should not be top 75. Now, they're 76th according to Ken Palm, but, I'm going to take a leap of faith and say they should, at the very least, be a top 75 defensive efficiency squad. All right, last two things in this preview will be going over the schedule and predicting the starting lineup. And I guess, three things, and predicting the Iowa Hawkeye record / what the expectation should be for this season. So I believe this is an exhibition game. Without looking at the schedule and just looking at the talent that Iowa has, they should win 20 plus games. They do have a tough non-conference, with games against Seton Hall, Clemson, Cal or TCU, Georgia Tech, Duke, Iowa State. That's it, guys. That's a tough, that's a very difficult non-con. But again, just based off of the talent that Iowa has, they should be a 20 plus win team. Just for shites and gigs, I will predict each and every one of these games here. So let's just go through the list. I'll go through it as quickly as possible. Bethune-Cookman win. NCAA AT&T or AT win. Seton Hall, I will go with a win, but that's going to be a tough game. Omaha win. Clemson win. Cal or TCU, I will go with a win. So in the first 6 games, in my opinion, Iowa should be 6-0. Georgia Tech, I'm going to go with a win because it's at home. Duke, I'm going to go with a loss. So they will, I believe that will be 9 or 10-1 at this point. Iowa State, I believe Iowa gets revenge after the shellacking they took to Iowa State after beating them 3 or 4 straight times before that. They beat Wisconsin. They beat Southeast Mizzou State. They beat Eastern Illinois. They beat Nebraska. They lose to Penn State, even though they should not. They beat Indiana. They lose to Rutgers. They beat Michigan, beat Maryland, beat Northwestern, beat Ohio State, lose to Michigan State. They beat Rutgers. They beat Illinois. They lose to Purdue. They beat Minnesota. They beat Ohio State again, take the sweep, beat Northwestern. This is a toss-up here, I would say, at Wisconsin. I will lean Iowa. They beat Wisconsin. They beat Michigan State. They lose to Indiana, and they beat Nebraska. So what is the predicted record? So 1 loss, 2 losses, 3, 4, or excuse me. No, I said they would beat Rutgers. Didn't I? Come on, guys, help me out here. I think they finish with a 20-6, or excuse me, with 6 losses. I don't know how many wins that comes out to, but again, just to go over this again, I think they lose to Penn State on the road, even though they should not. I think they lose to Rutgers. That's 2 losses. Um, I think they lose to Michigan State on the road. I think they lose to Purdue on the road. And I think they lose to Indiana on the road. So that's 6 losses. All right, guys, the starting 5, okay? Let me go to the roster here. Actually, you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to type it out and have it ready. Okay, guys, here we go. Wrapping the video up here. Here is the starting lineup. And, usually I do my starting 5 and the starting 5 that I think we will see. But this year, it's the exact same. This is who I would start, and this is who I think it's going to be. Point guard, Aaron Eulis. Shooting guard, Tony Perkins. Small forward, Chris Murray. Power forward, Patrick McCaffrey. I mean, you could switch them, Chris and Patrick, but it doesn't really matter. They are the forwards, and center will be Philip Rebracha. The key reserves will be Peyton Sandfort and CMAC. Those will be the top 2 coming off the bench. Point guard Desante Bowen, shooting guard Josh Dix, and center Josh Agundale / Riley Mulvey. And those 2 will be battling it the entire season for who provides the reserve minutes for Philip Rebracha. You won't see these guys playing a ton at the same time. And it'll be interesting to see who gets the nod. I think Josh Agundale is a little bit further ahead of Riley. I think Riley's probably a better defender than Josh. But Josh has certain physical tools that I don't think Riley has. And he is a very, very big body. And you can always use that in the Big Ten. So this is it, guys. This is a very deep team. And I know we always say that for Fran McCaffrey teams, but this really is. And this is a very talented Iowa Hawkeye team as well. I would say the top 9 of the Iowa Hawkeyes is very, very good. It's athletic. It's got length. It's got, offensive skills, shooting, Now, on the flip side, I would say, and it depends on how improved Patrick and Connor are at shooting the 3-point ball, but I think this team is probably a little bit less of a shooting team than last year was, but we'll see. I think it's possible that they're at least the same as what we saw last year. It really depends on Chris, Patrick, Peyton, and Connor. How improved are they at shooting the 3 ball? So, Josh Dix will help. I'll put it to you this way, guys. It's not a concern of mine, the shooting on this team, okay? They still can knock down 3-point shots. Are they as deadly as the last 2 Iowa Hawkeye teams with Joe Wieskamp, with Jordan Bohannon? No, I mean, those guys were historically good 3-point shooting teams. But can they be close to that? Yes, I think they can. And is it a Los Angeles Lakers deficiency at shooting the 3-point ball? No, it is not. All right, guys, that is going to do it for me. This is the Iowa Hawkeye 2022-2023 basketball preview. This is going to be a very good Iowa basketball team. I think they should finish at the very least, the top 6 of the Big Ten. I think right now, before we even see their first game, they're a top 5 Big Ten team. It will depend on their defense and how improved not improved, but what they're shooting looks like in real numbers compared to last year. Those are the 2, I would say, as a team, things that will determine how good this team is. Are they a top 8 Big Ten team? Or are they a top 5? And the 2 things that will determine that is their defense and their 3-point shooting. I think there's a lot to like about this team. I think there are a lot of positions and possibilities with this team that should have fans excited about what they can do. And, you know, it comes down to them and fulfilling their potential. That is what it comes down to. Make no mistake, though, this is a 20-plus win Iowa basketball team, and I am very excited for this year's version of the Iowa Hawkeyes, and you should be too. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for listening. Be sure to hit the subscribe button, like, comment, share. You know the drill. I will see you guys next time. DBAP, don't be a pussy willow, and facts are feelings because your feelings just don't matter. Love you guys. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.